Yo, what's going on? Hey, I appreciate y'all tuning in. Uh, Everybody, all the subscribers, new, old, hey, whatever. I appreciate y'all for tuning into this video. And this video is actually a video I had recorded, but I was like, you know what? It'd probably be better if I do it live. And we're going to talk about something that everyone has to deal with at some point in their life is paying rent. I know there's always this age old discussion between is it better to rent? Is it better to pay a mortgage? But, I guess that depends on your situation. It depends on what works best for you and your family. But the one thing that is great about actually paying a mortgage is that there is some level of consistency when it relates to your payment. Your payment is only going to fluctuate so much because of maybe increased taxes or insurance. But outside of that, if you got a fixed rate, it's going to stay the same. It's not going to be nothing that's crazy. Hey, what's going on, sis? Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you. It's not going to be crazy. Hey, before we dive in, disclaimer, licensed attorney, not legal advice, financial advice, just letting y'all know what we got going on there, giving my opinion on financial takes and financial topics. We're going to talk a little bit about some crazy stuff that's just going on in the housing market. And we're also going to talk a little bit about we're going to give a speed through course of antitrust law, what it is, and how a violation of antitrust law has the possibility to increase your rent. Now, again, before we even take a look, I got a few videos that I'm gonna play, nothing long, maybe about 1 or 2 seconds. But the first thing that I wanted to talk about related to home costs, and even before we dive into the stuff that could increase your rent times two, I want to talk about a 40-year mortgage. I don't know if y'all even heard of this. It originated in Los Angeles and over in California, which makes sense because their houses overinflated as hell. Their houses are really expensive. But now people are allowed to get a 40-year mortgage. You stretch that payment out over 40 years. I mean, 30 years is a long ass time. 40 years, when you talk about 40-year mortgage, I don't know. I think that's one that's crazy. And the amount of insurance you're going to pay for that extra 10 years to stretch out that payment. I mean, by the time you pay that house off, you probably would have paid for that house twice. So that's something that I saw this on the real estate front and the home ownership front that I thought was really crazy, really wild, really insane. Now, today we are going to talk about corporate thugs, corporate goons, I guess is how I would define it. But there's something that's going on, and we've probably seen these stories a lot. So I'm gonna go ahead and play the clip from the news. Then we're gonna go ahead and dive deeper into what's causing this. Now, before I even go in, I know a lot of people are gonna say, "Well, there are a bunch of factors that could cause rent to go up: decrease in housing availability, high interest rates." Yes, yes, yes. All that stuff is true. A bunch of factors can cause your rent to increase. I mean, hell, what your landlord wants to do and how much profit he wants to make can cause your rent to increase. But this is something that appears to be systematically designed to screw people over in the long run. So let me go ahead and pull up the video because we need to know that these type of things, these type of increases are something that are really common that are going on in the United States. And y'all let me know if y'all can hear the audio to this in the chat.
Can your rent raise go? A Valley man says he got this notice. The rent would go from about $1,500 to $4,000 a month for this property. And if he's outside a lease and still staying there, there's a day rate to live here, about $260 a day, or close to $8,000 a month. There is no law in Nevada limiting any rent raises, and the landlord's family says this is what they're asking. This is their right to name the price. The tenant's attorney says he is fighting it.
Our industry was shut down for almost 18 months straight, like no shows at all.
For those who work in live entertainment in Las Vegas, for 2 years, so many workers like Derek could barely make it and barely afford rent. At this home in the West Valley near Hualapai and Desert Inn, rent came out to roughly $1,500 a month. Unemployment through PUA went a long way to pay rent. Last fall, then came the notice many renters dread. How much will rent go up?
Raising the rent from $1,535 to $4,000.
When you saw that, what'd you think?
I laughed. Literally, I laughed out loud. this has got to be a joke. Who does this? How does this happen?
Derek says no neighbors are paying anywhere close to that. A Zillow search has a suggested monthly rate for the home, $2,100 a month. On another rental notice from the landlord, it states the holdover fees, or rate outside the lease, $263 a day. That would send rent soaring to around $8,000 a month for this house. Derek says there's no way he wants to stay here at all.
But I would have moved 6 months ago. But to move right now, it'll cost you to get into a house $6,000, $8,000.
In December, the landlord's relative who manages the property says she sent an eviction notice. Derek applied for CHAP, federal rent assistance, through Clark County. He says CHAP referred him to Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada.
We didn't agree to the $4,000. I would argue the provision doubling the rent is unconscionable. This was a unilateral decision by the landlord. He couldn't agree to that amount of money, and it would be unreasonable to do so.
What the attorney for legal aid tells me they're looking at is this clause in Derek's lease. It says right here, during a holdover not authorized by the landlord, rent shall increase by 100%. So the attorney's arguing here that if a judge looks at this and agrees to it, wouldn't rent be $3,000, not $4,000? But the property manager and family members says this is an old lease. The property manager declined to answer this one question. How could anyone afford that high of a rent raise?
All right, so one, that video is ridiculous. I actually feel bad. And feel sorry for that dude that he has to deal with that. Hey, what's going on? What's going on, sis? Oh man. I'm telling you, it's a hustle. Wait till you see what's going on. So before we start, I want to give a brief overview of what antitrust law is. Think of antitrust law as a federal law designed to keep competitiveness in the market and to keep prices down. Because think about it. If I sold cars and I got a Honda dealership, I'm Honda. If I went over to Ford and went over to Cadillac and went over to Mercedes and I said, you know, my cars ain't as dope as yours, but I'm charging everybody $45,000. So you should charge somewhere in the $45,000, $50,000 range. And everybody said, yeah, you know what? Let's all overinflate the price of our car, but we're going to make all of our prices the same. So no one has an option, and whatever they buy, they'll have to buy at the price we're paying. Essentially, antitrust law, and you see a lot of times when Company A purchase Company B. Company A will buy Company B, and then you'll see the federal court saying, oh, whoa. Y'all trying to corner the market so y'all can price gouge. We're going to make this contract or this purchase of this company null and void. So that's just really, in short, what antitrust law is. So now we're going to talk about this little bit of software that they got. And I'm a big data guy. Numbers, data, having information allows you to make decisions, allow you to anticipate moves. But there's a software out there. It's called YieldStar. It's called YieldStar. And this software is interesting because essentially what this software does is it takes the ability of a tenant to negotiate with a landlord or a landlord to take external factors into consideration when setting the price point for tenant. You're like, okay, what the hell does that mean? That was a long, convoluted thing. Essentially, what YieldStar does is landlords put a bunch of data related to the people who stay in their properties in this system. Employment, wages, age, last job, last rent paid. They put all of this data into this system, and this computer essentially generates an algorithm. Now, I know y'all probably listening and thinking like, well, that doesn't sound that bad. This computer uses all of that data and this algorithm to make an estimate of what rents could be based on a particular area. So in theory, that doesn't sound bad. But the problem is one neighborhood in Seattle, like, it's crazy. It's like a vast majority of the rental properties are owned by three main companies, and all three companies, all of them uses this software. So essentially, they can fix the rent prices amongst all of these different complexes, And the way this software is designed to work, I mean, let's just think about it. I actually got the commercial because I want y'all to see the commercial, because the commercial is actually ridiculous as hell. When you see the commercial, you're gonna be like, why are they using this model? Well, most times it's greed, but I know, and most people, if you're like me, when I determine what the rent is, I look at what the comps are in the area. I may actually look at the person's. I may actually look at the comps in the area. Look if I see something comparable, and I look and I be like, oh shit, that house is way better than mine. I can't charge as much as they charge because their shit is completely updated and renovated, and they got smart lamps and their blinds are automatic and all of that stuff. So a lot of times you take those external factors into consideration. The interesting thing with this software is it's not based on you having full occupancy. So there are stories out there of individuals who rents were doubled from $3,000 to $6,000 a month. And all of the companies who use this software, they always perform better than the market, because the concept is we're going to overcharge substantially for these units, because we don't want to have a unit that's completely 100% occupied. We don't want to do that. We're going to overcharge and double our rent for these units. The very few people who can actually pay, because they can pay, will still make a profit, even though a large amount of our units are vacant. It's such a jacked up system and such a hustle. I actually got the commercial here. And I hope you feel better too. I hope you feel better too. I was just reading that comment. No, this system. Let me show you YieldStar's actual commercial. But the whole point of it isn't designed to have 100% occupancy at a fair comparable rate. The point of it is we're going to reduce the amount of units we have. We're going to overcharge 2 times what the actual running rate should be for rent. Everybody won't be able to pay it. But if 4 people can pay this exorbitant amount, we'll make more money than we would have made if this building was full of everybody paying what the comparable amount was. It's such a damn hustle, and their commercial is hilarious. It's a little convoluted, but I want to play this commercial so y'all can actually see it. And I'm gonna pull up the article as well. Let me pull up this commercial real quick. Let's see.
To understand how YieldStar Revenue Management can double or triple your revenue performance to market, you don't need a calculator, a spreadsheet, or even a whiteboard. You need this. Hello, my name is Nicola Lambo, and I'd like to show you how YieldStar has helped leading multifamily operators and investors achieve 3 to 7% revenue outperformance to market. Imagine this face represents one of your apartment communities. Regardless of the economic climate, good or bad, your team has to fill it to the right level with the best rents. Having a transparent revenue management system is key. YieldStar provides complete transparency that others don't, so you can understand all the factors that drive improved asset performance. Now, think of these golf balls as your residents. Once the jar starts filling up and hits that magical market occupancy rate, a lot of companies start to relax, thinking this performance is good enough, especially during the good times. What they lose sight of are the opportunities to continue to drive rent growth on the remainder of their community and significantly outperform the market. The vase may look full, but is it? Or is there room for more opportunities? That's why real-time performance analysis with YieldStar is so important.
It's cold.
It can reveal more revenue opportunities with real-time visibility into true property and market dynamics. Because in the end, it's how you perform during the good times that makes you great. So, let's fill in those gaps. These beats...
So let me fast forward a little bit to a key part that she's going to say. Let me see. I don't want to go and give them all this free advertisement. Let me see.
Focusing on your asset strategy, managing internal supply and demand, and leveraging millions of units of real-time lease transactions that drives your performance so you can continually outpace the market in good times and bad. By maximizing internal asset opportunities and capitalizing on turns in the market, YieldStar has helped thousands of communities and hundreds of our partners continuously outperform over the last 10 years. Imagine the opportunities YieldStar can provide for you. Our innovative approach and data availability deliver optimized pricing and asset performance based on calculation, not speculation. Because achieving market revenue growth may be good enough, but in the end, good enough just isn't.
Now, this video is interesting, and there was one part in here. I don't want to go through it and hunt this one part down, but there's one part where she expressly says, we outperform the market even when we aren't at full occupancy. And so this article that I found about this is interesting, but even more interesting, remember the definition I gave y'all for what antitrust law is designed to do. It's going to be interesting because, of course, the person who invented this software when he came back to the U.S. had litigation for antitrust violations in the late 80s and early 90s. And he literally took that same model from the illegal shit he was doing in one area and moved it over to the home rental game. So it's kind of a real cold system that's designed to capitalize and make money even when occupancy is low or occupancy isn't at its highest or an optimal level, because they're overcharging the hell out of people. And it says, in this article, it says, in one neighborhood in Seattle, ProPublica found 70% of apartments were overseen by just 10 property managers, every single one of which was using pricing software sold by RealPage, which is the company that makes this YieldStar software. And to arrive to a recommended rent, the software deploys an algorithm, a set of mathematical rules to analyze a trove of data RealPage gathers from clients, including private information on what nearby competitors charge. Remember what we talked about antitrust. You want to keep competition legit. You don't want to have everybody setting up a scheme where they're charging the same thing, so the market doesn't determine the price. It says for tenants, the system upends the practice of negotiating with apartment building staff. RealPage discourages bargaining with renters and has even recommended that landlords in some cases accept a lower occupancy rate in order to raise rents to make more money. I mean, think about that. That's crazy. If we don't rent out all of our apartments, I mean, people got to stay somewhere, so we can charge way more and still make with if we got 10 units and we only rent out 5, we're not going to rent out all 10. We rent out those 5 because occupancy is scarce. We can increase the rent and still make more of a profit than we would have made if we had all 10 of these based on real, actual, legitimate prices and rents. It's kind of crazy, but this is where it gets really interesting. And so part one is the software is crazy as hell. And this software is really designed to just kind of screw people over. But the other part is, let's take a look at the guy who invented this software behind this company, the guy who invented this YieldStar software and runs this RealPage company. Let's take a look at his background to find out where he come from. Because think about it. It said 70% of the apartment complexes, all of the management companies use this software. It shares information. So now this software knows what everybody in every complex is charging. And based on that, they set a rent price. Sounds a lot like collusion. Sounded a lot like collusion to me. And I wouldn't be shocked if an antitrust lawsuit hit these guys relatively soon. Now, let me take a look, and I'm going to show y'all a little bit about the owner, which also is interesting. Let me see. I want to make sure. Let me see. Give me 1 second. Okay. Yeah. This is it right here. This is it. Interesting. One of YieldStar's main architects was a business executive who had personal experience with antitrust prosecution. This is where it gets interesting. A genial self-described numbers nerd, Jeffrey Roper, was Alaska Airlines Director of Revenue Management when it and other major airlines began developing price-setting software in the 1980s. Now, this sounds eerily familiar. They say he'd been prosecuted for antitrust violations. Competing airlines began using common software to share planned routes and prices with each other before they became public. The technology helped head off price wars that would have lowered ticket prices, the Department of Justice said. The department said the arrangement may have artificially inflated airfares, estimating the cost to consumers at more than $1 billion between 1988 and 1992. The government eventually reached settlements or consent decrees for price fixings with 8 airlines, including Alaska Airlines, all of which agreed to change how they use the technology. So this is literally the same shit. This is the same thing. At one point, federal agents removed the computer and documents from Roper's, I think his name is Jeffrey Roper, Roper's office at the airline. He said he and other creators of the software weren't aware of the antitrust implications. We all got called up before the Department of Justice in the early 1980s because we were colluding, he said. We had no idea. Now, in the 80s, this guy saying that he had no idea. It's goddamn... it's about to be 2023. This dude was doing this in the 80s when I was a baby. This is crazy. When Roper returned to the United States in the early 2000s, after a stint in Central and Eastern Europe, he said he discovered the apartment rental industry was so far behind technologically that it resembled the emerging market he just left. Apartment managers were basically pricing their products on a paper napkin, said Roper, who eventually formed his own company. So, RealPage hired Roper as its principal scientist in 2004 to improve software it had bought from Camden Property Trust, blah, blah, blah. Roper quickly realized he required data and a lot of it. So these, wherever you got your lease at, they giving your information to these guys so they can price collude. He realized he needed a lot of data to get the algorithm working properly. He began building a master data warehouse that pulled client data from other RealPage applications, such as those from leasing managers. A proof of concept version of the software had blah, 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 blah. Essentially, long story, think about it. Instead, YieldStar suggested boosting rents. We were like, guys, just try it. The units ended up renting for significantly more than staff had expected, he said. This was the kind of eureka moment that he had. If you listened to your gut, you would have lowered your price. The practice of lowering rent to fill vacancy was a reflex for many in the apartment industry. Letting units sit empty could be costly and nerve-wracking for leasing agents. Such agents sometimes hesitated to push rents higher. Roper said they were often peers of people they were renting to. So this dude essentially took the same illegal practice that he was utilizing in the airplane industry that he actually got prosecuted for. Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. The dude got prosecuted for it. Now, I will tell you, it's crazy because, you know, when I was reading that article, it says that this software has been in development for a long time. So the problem isn't this. Well, the problem is this guy, but the bigger problem is that DOJ is missing the ball. And because one part of the Department of Justice or your local state's attorney office is to protect the public from stuff like this. And so you would think, is news articles out there the same way I pulled up a damn video about the rent increase and the same way I pulled up that article? I mean, I've worked at these places. I work in these places. I see stuff on the news. You know how many times I've seen something on the news and the next day I went back and I said, yo, we got to have a meeting. Did y'all see this shit on the news? This is something we might need to look at. So clearly somebody at DOJ or a section at DOJ needs to kind of look at this area. But these guys are purposely using this software. One is a few things that are jacked up here. One, when you enter into a lease an apartment, they're sharing this data with this company, probably without your consent. You know, most times when companies get your data, there's some type of waiver that you sign that they may or may not share it. We've all seen lawsuits or maybe gotten a random, hey, you could be part of this litigation because your data was shared illegally with XYZ company. So once you rent at a place, they're actually taking your data, what you're paying, what your salary is, giving it to this company who all of the real estate owners are doing, all of the property owners are using to essentially collude and set prices high as hell. So they, and I mean, I'll be honest, like if I was a greedy bastard, if I was a greedy bastard and I could make more money selling out less units at a higher price, why wouldn't I want to do that? If I had 10 units, why rent out 10 units for $2,000 a month when I can rent out 4 units for $5,000 a month, for $6,000 a month? Because, you know, those people actually can pay it. Then the vacant units that I got, I don't really need nobody in because I'm making my money back and I don't got to worry about the wear and tear. I don't got to worry about your kids flushing crayons down the toilet and calling the repair. So from a greedy bastard standpoint, is actually a smart thing to do, but it's definitely illegal as hell. So I know Seattle, Los Angeles, of course, it was mainly large populated areas where I seen this software being used. You know, the New York cities, in Texas, you know, big large places like that. I didn't see it in more rural areas, but it's a cold game out here. And even when we talk about, you know, the prices of rents, when we look at that earlier video, I mean, it's sad because there's really no legal recourse from somebody raising the rent. Like if I had a tenant who was terrible, you do the same thing. If I had a client who walked in the door, if I had a client or somebody who wanted to be a client and they walked into the door and after talking to them for 5 minutes, I realized that they were a jerk and were crazy, rather than just tell them, oh man, I can't help you. Sometimes I just tell them a price that I know is too high and, you know, just to get them away so I don't got to deal with them. And these landlords are using this same damn concept. I'm just a frugal one. Nah, man, you got to be real, man. Like, I don't want to, like, I don't know. I mean, I guess I always try to go in between. You know, if I'm setting rent prices, I'm like, okay, what is the highest rent in this area for a place that this size, this 1,500 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms? What is the best, most brand new place going for? Then once I see what that's going for, I'm like, all right, I can't choose that. My place is like a B. It's a good, strong B, but it's not an A plus. I don't got all the newest, latest technology. But when you're using the software, and that's the thing, that's how rents were normally done. I mean, there's a person who actually sitting there doing this research and saying, okay, based on all of these factors and everything, and, you know, the economy, inflation, they take all of that shit into consideration and they say, we're going to set the rents at this. When you just give that shit to the algorithm going to spit out that number. And if you can't afford it, shame on you, because that algorithm knows that if we set this rent of the 100 people, 100% occupancy. So 10 people, of the 10 people we have occupying that building, this algorithm knows that only 4 people are going to be able to afford to have their rent increased by 100%. But, you know, if 4 people increase their rent by 100%, we're going to make about a 5% profit, the same as what we would have made if we just charged everybody the normal rent. It's crazy as hell. This is a travesty, man. It's a travesty. Nah, man, I ain't got no damn wood stove in there. I ain't got it. I will tell you though about my place I got that my pop stay at. That dude, he actually be out there chopping wood using this wood stove. I'll be like, man, this dude country as hell. I think he just like doing it to stay in shape and shit. But nah, I ain't got no wood stove. But there's a lot of things that's going to impact the housing market. And I mean, even with, I don't know if you all seen this, but a lot of people, I'm interested. I haven't seen nobody put up a video yet because a couple years ago, Airbnb was all the trend. Everybody was like, oh, I'm renting these properties out and I'm using them as Airbnbs. And I always had a thought about that, right? Airbnb is cool and dope. And presumably you can make a lot more money with the Airbnb than you could just actually charging someone a real rent, not one of these overinflated, trumped up rents that we talked about from this whack ass software, right? But for me, think about it. If you had 5 rental properties, all 5 of them being Airbnbs, that doesn't sound like risky to y'all. I thought that was risky. Like for me, if I had 3 properties, 2 I would want regular full-time, long-term tenants in, and maybe 1 I would do an Airbnb. But essentially, I just saw an article on Airbnb where people have had 0 vacancies since August. And why is that? Why is nobody renting their Airbnbs no more? Because the goddamn market is oversaturated. There's an Airbnb on every corner. So now these dudes are just stuck with these units in this Airbnb status. It's crazy as hell. Yeah, hey, some cats like I actually had to beg and plead with my father to get, because the house didn't have, when we got it, it didn't have I mean, you gotta think about it. That's a house that like my great 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 grandfather bought. He couldn't even uh read and write. I got the paperwork. He signed his name with a damn X. That shit didn't have like a furnace or central heating or none of that stuff in there. So, you know, my pops was just used to always doing that. He probably did that shit from when he was a kid before we got the place back. And so I actually had to beg and plead with him. I was like, dude, we need to just go ahead and put an HVAC system in here. I mean, like, it's fucking 2000. This ain't the 1800s. You know, he got kindling wood. And it was kind of crazy. He actually did something that was smart too. He had a place that he built, but he ran into some finance troubles. So he ended up letting that place go in foreclosure. Now, when you let your place go in foreclosure, I don't know, this is a gem if y'all all know this or not, but when you let your place go in foreclosure, you know, they only take the house. So the stuff that's affixed to the house, if you can remove it, you can remove it. So I was like, man, hey, that house you got over there. So he actually did it real smart. It was actually genius. He took everything out of that house. I'm talking about appliances, HVAC unit, anything that could be removed from that house. He took it out. And when he actually had the house built, it was on 2 lots of land. So it was lot A, lot B, and the house sat on lot B, but the yard in the front yard was lot A. So, so when the government came and, you know, they was like, oh, that house is going up for auction. We bought the lot A, but not the lot B that the house sat on. So the guy who bought the house, he don't got a front yard. His front yard is our property. And he been trying to sell. He been like, man, y'all want to sell it? I was like, nah, but I rent you a path so you can get ingress and egress to your front door. Because if he don't use that front lot, he has to go through the woods. Oh man, it was genius. It was genius. But let's see. Yeah, Airbnbs are cool, but everybody is oversaturated. Everybody got into them. I saw a video. Tell me how risky is this shit? I saw a video where a guy was doing Airbnb, but he didn't even own the home or didn't have a mortgage on the home. He would actually rent a house. He's renting a house for $2,000 a month to put the damn thing on Airbnb. Like, that's crazy as hell. Like, I can see mathematically how that's profitable, but man, that's a lot of goddamn risk. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like that's a lot of risk. I wouldn't want to assume all of that risk. Y'all know I'm risk averse. Yeah, he took everything. See, he took everything out of that house. I was mad though because I ain't had my money right like where it wanted to be, because it was that he had that property that was going for a foreclosure sale, but we just had a death in the family, and I wanted to purchase the family home first. I wanted to purchase both of them because I could stand on my porch and look over and see that yard. I wanted to purchase both of them, but because it happened so fast, I was like, damn, I only had enough ends to get one of them outright. So I was like, you know what? I'll just get this one outright. And the guy who actually purchased it, I mean, I don't know. If I really want to get him out of it, I'll just go park a bunch of shit in his front yard and just make it an attractive nuisance. and force them to move. But that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother story for a whole different day. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they are. I mean, from an insurance standpoint, they of course they are, but as long as the lease allows for it, it's like in New York and like in DC, you can't really. I don't know. Can y'all sublet places where y'all at? Can y'all like rent out a place, and if you want to move, instead of paying the fee, like, okay, I'm renting this place for $2,000, I'm moving, and I'm going to enter into a lease with John over here, and John's going to occupy this place for $2,500. Do y'all leases or rental leases still allow for that? I know where I'm at in the city, most leases don't allow you to sublet because it could be a tricky game. You got a tenant, then your tenant gets a tenant, then that tenant doesn't want to pay, and now fuck all that. I'm not doing that. That's too daggone complicated. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. But some states allow for you to do that. Now, this guy, I don't know if he didn't actually break down the numbers. It was one of those finance gurus. I'm not going to talk about his name, but it's one of those finance gurus who was like, hey, I'm going to show you how to get into real estate with little to no money. All you'll need is X amount of dollars, a first and last month of rent. And he went through the scenario, and mathematically, it makes sense. If I could rent a place for $1,700 and I could rent it out to Airbnb for 20 nights out of a month for $250, I mean, mathematically, it makes sense, but that you assuming that the Airbnb market going to be jumping. A lot of those guys now standing around looking like damn idiots because the market's oversaturated. Every corner you go to is an Airbnb. So the first Airbnb I got, I tried to get, I think the dude was I don't know. Never mind. I'm gonna keep my comment I was about to make to myself. Pop up a tiny home on that property at Airbnb. Actually, that was one of the things that I'm actually going to do. That's how I want to get this this guy who's in my father's former house who bought it in a foreclosure. That was my thought. I was like, you know what? We got that big ass lot of land. Literally, when he walked out of his front door off his porch, he could take 4 steps, and that's where his property line ends. So I was like, I'm gonna go park a bunch of shit out there and I was thinking about putting one of those trailers, like a double wide out there, because it's already had a water setup and everything. And if I put that double wide trailer right in front of his damn house, he gonna be mad as hell. Oh man, they can't do it across the board nowhere. You can't have sublet, I guess is what it's called. I think that create more problems though. I think if you start getting into sublets, I rent it to A rents it to B, B's in it for a couple years, he rents it to C, then C don't want to pay. Now B got to take him to court. A guy, man, that shit'll get ridiculous. I end up just punching somebody in the damn face. So it's probably in the best interest for me and anything that I'm doing that I don't allow that to be done. But there are a lot of people, like I said, who are renting properties and they just doing straight Airbnbs off of a rental property. I think that's common. I think it's just too much of a legal hassle. I think from a money standpoint, you can make money if times were perfect, but I don't know. Hey, did y'all all go out and do y'all civic duty? Everybody who vote. I don't know if y'all saw this. I don't know if y'all saw the Republicans put out. I'm probably gonna do a video on it to break it down. The Republicans put out as the election was going on, because we know things are still going on. And real talk, if Herschel Walker win, it's crazy. That's all I'm gonna say. But before I delve into it, the Republicans put out their plan for the economy and to address inflation. And then like 5 minutes later, the White House put out their plan, and their plan wasn't really a plan. Their plan just talked shit about the Republican plan. It was the funniest damn thing I ever seen in my life. It was I was like, man, this is a mess. Yeah. I don't think is as big of a problem with the insurance aspect here, because if my lease allows it, it's just as easy as calling. I mean, I've seen this done so many times. If your lease allows it, it's just as easy as like, hey, you call the insurance company. I'm a tenant, but my lease allows this property to be sublet to someone else, and here's the contract, and they'll move your renter's insurance. It's weird. It's weird. They can work it out where they apply renters where you have insurance. It's fucked up. I can't even explain it, but they can adjust it to where the insurance works for everybody. It's just too much of a damn hassle. Who's responsible for what? And I got a policy, but is a policy under you, and I don't have all the time to do that. I don't have the bandwidth and the brain power to even figure out how that would work. Yeah, that's true. Because if it's like, even with it's like that with taxes. Like, because I don't occupy property I own down south, and my father stayed there, and he don't pay any rent. He just lives there, but it's treated as a rental, so the taxes on it high as hell because it's treated as a rental. Versus if I just put it like, oh man, that's my second home, and I just put it as my second home, which I could do, but that would require me to be down there, and I ain't about to be down that much. I ain't about to be down there chopping wood with his ass. I'm definitely not going to be doing that. Oh, that's dope. That's dope. He voted even across the pond. That's dope. Hey, what's going on, sis? Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy because I'm gonna be honest. I don't know. Everybody going to jump on me for saying this, but the plans that the Republican has had, in theory, it sounded good. Now, what they do to execute all those objectives is typically probably going to be where I have an issue at. But it sounded good because I'll tell you, I don't agree, and I haven't seen anybody. I think I've seen one person on YouTube talk about this. I haven't seen anybody on YouTube talk about this. I see everybody talking about inflation, and the way to curb inflation is to raise interest rates. And then they'll go, in 1980, when this happened, the Feds raised interest rates and that curbed inflation. And yeah, that's technically true, but I don't think raising interest rates, I mean, think about it. They've been raising interest rates all year and inflation is still high as hell because this inflation was created from something that inflation has never been created before. This inflation was created by the government because of a pandemic. They said everybody stay home and close everything down, and it put a strain on the economy and supply chains shook up. So because it's an unconventional thing that caused inflation, I don't think you should necessarily use the same shit that you've been doing in the 70s and 80s to cure inflation. And the way they want to cure inflation is by raising interest rates, and wages are too high. They want to lower wages. Y'all saw I did a video where the government came out and said, Jerome Powell came out and said, we want to lower wages so wages are consistent with 2% inflation. And by doing that, we can lower inflation. Well, that's how you lower inflation all those damn years ago when inflation came up from normal conventional ways. This inflation created from a pandemic and essentially a shutdown of society. So I don't know if that's going to be a way to rectify. So I'm going to be honest. I don't know if this whole inflation thing, I don't give a damn red, blue, donkey, jackass, elephant, babe, whatever. I don't care what party is in charge. I think it's going to be a long time before inflation comes down and then the other thing is you can implement and raise all these interest rates. And the reason inflation hasn't came down yet is because people are still spending money. They raise interest rates. They raise interest rates because they want people to stop spending, not on the essential stuff, but stop the excess spending. Then when they stop the excess spending, it kind of lowers everything down. That's why they want to mess with and lower wages. That's why you see Meta, one of my partners just got laid off today. Meta laid off like 13 or 15% of their staff. I mean, that's kind of the consensus that's going around the board because the government wants to kind of stall down the labor market. Inflation goes up, which is they keep raising interest rates, but they're like, why the hell do people keep spending? Because the jobs report is so good. If you need more money, you can go out there and find a job. So they was like, we can't get people to do what we want them to do. We want y'all to stop spending so inflation can go down. We raise rates and y'all still fucking going to Cancun. How the hell can we keep rates down? Well, the way they can get those rates down is they're going to try to attack employment. So it's going to be interesting to see if it works out. but I don't think that. Like I said, I think this is not a normal inflation. This is not a normal thing that caused this inflation. So I don't think them old ass approaches is going to work. But it's going to be interesting to see who the hell think they can fix it. Yeah, I know. I was like, we had a comedian running for mayor, y'all. Ain't that some shit? Like, honestly, I like him. In DC, boy, our mayor is always hilarious. We had comedian. Y'all know who the comedian Red Grant is? Red Grant is running for mayor. I saw a commercial for Red Grant, and I thought it was an advertisement for him doing a performance somewhere. And then I was like, man, that wasn't funny. That was serious. I was like, that wasn't funny. That was where he performing at. And then I looked, I was like, oh man, this dude actually is running for mayor. We had a damn comedian running for mayor. But hey, I mean, this is DC, so I'd rather have a comedian for mayor. I mean, we've had worse. I'm not gonna go into the depths of it. Yeah, you didn't know we had a comedian running for mayor, Red Grant? Now you about to make me pull up his campaign flyer. So this is what we got to work with in DC. The same person who been doing it forever or a fucking comedian. Like these options, man. Like, God, I should have just wrote my name on the mail-in ballot. But yeah, these are the options. We had I can't believe I didn't tell you that, dog. We had a comedian who ran for mayor. And the funny thing is, Red Grant funny as hell. And I'll tell you, I've actually I used to be really deep into district politics here for whatever reason, one reason or another. And I'll tell you, his actual platform wasn't a bad platform. The thing is, look, this dude got a website and everything. But the thing is he just didn't have that money. You need to have that. If you don't got your pockets laced by corporations and contractors, it's expensive. It's expensive as hell to run a campaign. But yeah, for DC, we had a damn comedian. Yeah, Red Grant from DC. We had a damn comedian running for mayor. So that was what our options were. Let me see if I could pull this up. Those were our options right there. Good old Red Grant. Join the movement. He out there dancing. He working with law enforcement. Look at that. Working with the L. Oh man, his page won't even load. See, look at that. God damn, they got a lot of alphabets on that shit now. He worked with the LGBTQIA. Forgive me for my ignorance. I don't even know what IA is. I got the other stuff, but hey, if anybody watching this, forgive me for my ignorance. I got none. But he was out here in the community volunteering, but those are kind of our options. And I mean, honestly, I would rather have a comedian than some of the shit that's out there, but that's just kind of what it was. So hey, we did I don't know. I feel like you got to make your finances I like to call them election proof. I try to election proof my finances, and what that means is I don't really give a damn who's sitting in office or who's sitting in that chair. I want to position myself that I can capitalize on it, and I think the best way to do that is I'm preaching to the choir in some instances, but by investing in the stock market, they are always going to protect the stock market. It's without a shadow of a doubt. Everybody like, oh, the stock market down 20, 30%. Yeah, that's fine. But if you got money in there and you leave it in there, I guarantee you in 18 to 24 months, you're going to be a lot richer than you were before that shit started. So, but I mean, he wasn't a bad candidate. He just ain't had a political cachet. He didn't have the political cachet capital to run is one. Then the other thing is when you get a comedian, I mean, when you're in a political position, you got to start appointing people. Like who are you going to appoint? Like other comedians? Could you imagine like Dave Chappelle as the Secretary of Commerce? I don't know. I just don't. Yeah, I don't trust it, man. You got to have some. Politics, all politicians do the same bullshit, but I think if he really wanted to have a chance to win, he should have shown like, okay, I want this office, but these are my connections. I know attorney such and such who has experience doing this, who can serve in this role. Like when you show me you got a competent cabinet, Because I don't care who you are and what you do. You're only as strong as the people around you. If you're the mayor, you got a shit cabinet, it's going to be terrible. If you if you're a CEO and you got trash managers and leaders, your company is going to be garbage. So that's kind of what it is. But I'm gonna do a breakdown. I'm gonna do a video where I break down what both parties outline as their key economic points. It's going to be interesting because I think it's just going to be 2 years of nothing getting done, kind of like the previous 2 years. Kind of like the previous 2 years, but I think it's going to be 2 years of nothing getting done. And it also depends because I think everything is going to fall on that Georgia Senate seat with Herschel Walker and Raphael Warnock, which is crazy. The fact that you couldn't beat Herschel Walker, I think it goes as a slap in the face to your credibility. Like, think about what they did with Herschel Walker. Herschel Walker was in Texas. He played college football in Georgia. They called him and said, move from Texas to Georgia where you're beloved and you can run for office. I was like, man, this is crazy. Now that he's running, all the skeletons falling out of the closet for this dude. Crazy as hell, man. It's crazy as hell. Man, that cabinet, they'd been funny, man, but that fucking economy would have been jacked up. This is I'd have moved. I was like, man, if he would have won and that crazy ass, wild ass cabinet not knowing what they was doing, I would have moved exponentially. I'd have moved so goddamn fast. Yo, I did a poll too. I like to put up polls because that's how I come up with show topic ideas. But I did a poll on the whole pay to poop thing. And I don't know who this 17% of y'all are, but 17% of y'all out there bougie as hell. It was like 83% of people was like, hey, I'm down with pay for poop for pay. If I could do it right now, I would. 17% of the people was like, nah, I'm not doing it. Like, I'll be honest, like, if I had a $10 million net worth, I would still do it. I would still do it. It would be crazy. Yeah, both. I would move expeditiously, and I would. Both may be applicable, depending on how you take it. But man, it was crazy. 17% of people out there said that they actually would not do it, and I don't know. I just couldn't believe it. It's something that you do absolutely every day, but that's neither here nor there. And I actually tried to reach out to the lady. I need to know the truthfulness and the veracity of it. The website was legit. The application process was legit. I actually called and spoke to somebody because I want to know why y'all don't need. I feel like the age that I am, when you get my age, that seemed like poop research should be really viable because that's when people start breaking down. So you should accept it and not age discriminate against us. But I actually called them and somebody answered the phone. It was real professional. But I actually tried to reach out to this lady who, because, is anonymous. So you can't find out who did it. We just know from this article that this one lady did it. And I damn sure sent her an email because I need to know some details on this process and why no one else is doing it. You want to talk about an oversaturated? You think the Airbnb market is saturated? Shit, let the pay for poop market about to be oversaturated. They're gonna go from $500 per one to about $50. It's gonna be wild. But yeah, that's it. I want to just talk a little bit about this crazy algorithm. Hey, data and algorithms are cool when they're used to benefit everyone collectively, but when they're used to benefit a few individuals at the expense of a large population of people by pretty much reaming them is a jacked up situation. So y'all just keep y'all eye out in y'all area. I mean, that's a dope ass question too, to be able to ask, like, or look up to find out who the landlord or the property management company or whoever owned the owners of the property, if they use this software. It may be a good gauge. And like the article said, 10%, 70% of the properties are owned by like 3 fucking companies. So it's going to be hard to find something when it's such a small collective group of individuals who control so much of one market. Yo, Friday, y'all make sure y'all tune in. I'm going to have my homegirl Mel on, and it's going to be a great topic because she's a financial coach. I met her a month ago when I went to FinCon, and we're going to talk about some frosters and some crazy ass video clips of some of your favorite finance people, maybe not your favorite, but some very popular finance people on YouTube giving out some crazy advice. And I know the advice is crazy. I don't know a lot of things, but I know what a crime is. I don't know a lot of things, but I do know what a crime is. And some of the stuff I heard of these things is criminal. So we're going to talk about why people fall for scams. We're going to talk about some of the common scams that we've seen that are out there. And we're also going to take a look, and we're going to look at some of the course guru scammers out there. We're going to look at some of the multi-level marketing scammers, prepaid legal. Sorry, Wolverine, for trying to get you into the prepaid legal game, man. But I was young and dumb. I didn't know what I was doing. But it's going to be an interesting video. We're going to chop it up this Friday. We're going to talk about scams. So if y'all got anything crazy out there that y'all want me to look at, y'all make sure shoot me an email, hit me on IG, shoot me an email, hit me on IG. If I can incorporate it or you want me to talk about it. Yeah, I think there should be some regulation because, I mean, they got to have some regulation because there's guys out there who, and how could I put this? It's guys out there who have millions of eyes touching their content. And I lie to you now, and I'm not even going to say what the platform is at this moment, but it was about student loans. It was about student loans, and I know that he was living the dream selling prepaid legal. I was trying to live the dream too. They had a video about student loans, and so I'm repaying my student loans. So I was like, oh man, let me check this out. And they had a sister on there, and she said something to the effect of, you can start a business, get a loan in your business name to pay off your student loan. And if your business happens to go bankrupt, at least your loans is paid off. Does that even sound legal to y'all? Did that even sound like a good fucking idea? Pardon my language. See, I don't like to use the F-bomb on here. So, yeah, and that's cool. I like to see women and minorities in that area, but I like to see people who know what the hell they talking about. Yeah, start a business. This sister says start a business. You get a loan to pay off your student loans, and if your business sinks and that business dissolves, at least your student loan is paid off. But there's this whole concept, like the reason people start an LLC is to protect themselves. If I have a funeral home, right? I start a funeral home, and I got a funeral home, and I'm just operating it as under my name with my social security number. If I jack something up, they're gonna sue my ass. So I start an LLC, and if they sue me while I'm working in my capacity for that LLC, the only thing they could get is what the LLC owns. They can't touch my personal house and my personal accounts and all of that shit. So that was the concept. In theory, she was trying to take advantage of, but there's this beautiful legal concept called piercing the corporate veil. And essentially it means exactly what it is. It's piercing the corporate veil. There's a sheet and a curtain between you as an individual and your corporation. But if you fuck up and do something with that corporation that benefits you personally, we can pierce that veil and reach out and touch your ass on the other side. So, but a lot of people who didn't, I guess, don't know this, or she didn't know it. But it's crazy because when I looked in the comments, people was like, yo, that's a smart idea, son. I think that's a smart idea, son. I think I'm gonna go and get a loan in my business to pay off my car. And then when my business dissolves, I got a free car. No, you're gonna have a free ticket to Prosecutionville. And Prosecutionville ain't fun because it's gonna end up in Soap on a Ropeville, and you really don't want to go to Soap on a Ropeville. That shit isn't fun at all. So it's kind of crazy. And I think, it's one thing to put out incorrect information. And if I put out incorrect information, I've put out stuff where people corrected me, and I'd be like, oh, thanks for correcting me. And I'll come back and backtrack and say, oh, I made a mistake on this, that, and so forth. That's fine. But if you put out something and it's clearly freaking crazy and you realize it's crazy, or comments come up where it looks wild, you have an obligation as that content creator to come back and be like, hey, one, pull that video down, or an alternative, say, hey, this video we put up, edit it, adjust that part, take that part out, put out a video saying that this part isn't advice we would recommend people following, blah, blah, blah. But nah, people don't do that. They just want to get those goddamn clicks. And when they get those clicks, that's why everybody's selling courses, man. They teach you how to sell courses. Even when you go to FinCon, and I think FinCon is a great event. That's why I went 2 years in a row. You meet great people, but it's a little bit of gamesmanship. The name of the game isn't helping everybody financially. The name of the game is helping people financially, but how can you monetize it? That's why you see a lot of people with a lot of these courses and everything. And I mean, I don't know. Courses are cool, and I'm not saying all courses don't have value. Some courses do have value, but you know, some of that shit you need to watch. Some of the courses you need to watch what it is, who it is, how it's being delivered. You know, everybody who purports to know something may not know something. And you know, you probably never see me give a course in anything in particular because, you know, hey, with certain credentials come certain expectations and certain responsibilities, and I'm not putting myself out there. Nah, I'm good. I'm good. So yeah, I won't have a join me on Telegram for my investment club shit or nothing like that. That's one thing you won't see. I'm gonna give basic fundamental information. Then the other part of it too is, you know, the cool part is free game. You got to give out some free game. Yeah, the part of the argument is people wanting to dislike. Yeah, that's true too. I don't know. Let me see. It gives you an idea. Yeah, people just don't give a damn, man. It's all about making money. Like even with like I'll leave that for Friday's video. I'm about to delve into the topic. I was about to jump on somebody's throat, but we'll save that for the fraud scammer video on Friday. Hey, everybody who tuned in, hey, I appreciate y'all tuning in. I'm grateful for y'all tuning in. I definitely appreciate it. Hey, y'all take care. Be blessed. I'm going to holler at y'all Friday. Peace.